In the last video, we learned about the 10 plagues that God unleashed on Pharaoh. Each of these plagues was designed to get him to let the Israelites leave the bondage from the Egyptians. Moses and Aaron kept approaching Pharaoh after each plague and asking him if he would release the Israelites. It wasn't until the 10th plague, though, when all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians were killed, including the Pharaoh's son, that Pharaoh said that the Israelites could leave Egypt. All Egyptian households had someone die in them, so they eagerly gave the Israelites their gold and silver jewelry, as well as clothing, and sent them on their way. Hello, I'm Kathy Bartow. After the Israelites left and Pharaoh and his men realized that with the Israelites gone, there were no people left to serve any of them, that's when the Pharaoh changed his mind. Exodus chapter 14, verses 5 through 8. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people, and they said, "What is this that we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel, while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Bible tells us that approximately 600,000 Israeli men left Egypt. And when you add in women and children, the total was more like 2 million people of all ages and abilities. When the Israelites saw the Egyptians coming after them, they feared greatly, and they were angry with Moses, who they believed had led them to their destruction. Moses said these words to the people in verses 13 and 14. "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." Moses was very strong when addressing the people of Israel, but when Moses was alone, he cried out to God in prayer. But God had other plans. He wanted Moses to act, not pray. Listen to God's response in verses 15 through 18. "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. This pillar of cloud brought light by night to the Israelites and darkness to the Egyptians pursuing them. This gave the Israelites a chance to reach the Red Sea and then cross it on dry land, as told in verses 21 and 22. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and all the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. When the Egyptian army reached the Red Sea, the Bible tells us in verses 23 to 25, "The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watched the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud, looked down on the Egyptian forces, and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic. clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily, and the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." The Egyptians knew full well that the Lord was on the side of the Israelites and was against them. They were not able to turn back toward the shore in time when God said to Moses in verse 26, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." Doing what God had instructed him to do, listen to verses 27 through 29. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. Of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. The Bible tells us that not one of the Egyptians who followed after the Israelites into the Red Sea were saved. We don't know, however, if that included Pharaoh. What we do know is stated in verses 30 and 31. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Next week, we shall continue with Moses and the people of Israel's journey to Mount Sinai. We'll also talk about Moses' ascent on this holy mountain, up this holy mountain, to speak with God and receive the 10 Commandments. Till next time, peace be with you.